start now? 8 o'clock? I will read each sentence. Yeah. So, before we start, let's see what the previous paragraph is. Okay? Let's see what the previous paragraph is. And where is it? It's crow. Okay. It's coming from the dispensary. Okay. Here. The previous para, what Sridhar said, I am reading out the summary. Okay. The vital mind, just 1 second. Yeah. Yeah, got it. The vital mind tries for expansion, possession, domination, and mastery. But this is an ego-based effort and therefore defective. The next stage in the evolution is a mind-based ethical way, morality. It's an improvement over the vital way and its methods. Okay? Then the ethical reconstruction of our being recognizes a graduated transformative ascent and therefore a better way. But still, it's a rigid mental construction, morality. The true call in man is for the infinite and the supreme, not the mental ideas of what is good and bad. Nature's imposition on man of good and evil, the tendency towards the good and the distancing away from the evil are both useful to man in his upward progress. In other words, morality has a point when you are in the lower hemisphere. But there is a right way of rejection and a wrong way of rejection. Similarly, there is a right way of accepting and admitting into oneself influences, forces, vibrations, and a wrong way also. That is what man has to discover and practice. Okay? Now, what is the right and wrong way? Okay? So, nature attracts us towards the pleasant and causes repulsion away from the unpleasant. This is ego-based. Okay? God pushes us towards the good and away from the evil. Okay? Now, so the pleasant and the good are not the same thing. Man must learn to distinguish between the Shreyas and the Preyas. As the Katha Upanishad very clearly says, Shreyas is really the good, not for the body, mind, life, but for the soul. The Preyas is the pleasant and the good, but it applies to the soul and not the body, mind, life. That which is pleasant for the body, mind, life may not be at all the good for the soul. And that which is good for the soul may be very, very unpleasant for the body, mind, life. Okay? The pleasant may be bad for the soul, and the unpleasant may be very good for the soul. We have to make a very clear distinction between the two. Nature's ego-based method can be religious. It often rejects the world. God's way is spiritual and does not God's way is not selection and rejection, but transforms. Okay? So this is what he said until now. So now we come to the para that we read yesterday, and we are going to goes systematically one by one, sentence by sentence. Yes. There can be no artificial escape from the problem which has always troubled humanity and from which it has found no satisfying issue. This is what we all see. Individuals may have escaped into the higher hemisphere, but the world remains exactly the same. There's been a little bit of an evolution from matter to life to mind, but the mental area, it is stuck for a long time. There is no issue for mankind as such. There can be no artificial escape. What is meant by artificial escape? Artificial means not soul escape, but vital escape and mental escape. The mental escape, that's an artificial escape. Okay? And also artificial escape means you go away from the physical world. He is also hinting at the Mayavadins and the Buddhists. Okay? Artificial escape, individual escapes, but there is no escape for humanity. They remain in the same miserable condition. So what is the solution? That's what we'll discuss. There can be no artificial escape from this problem, which has always troubled humanity, and from which it has found no satisfying issue. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, with its sweet and bitter fruits, is secretly rooted in the very nature of the inconscious from which our being has emerged, and on which it still stands as a nether soil and basis of our physical existence. The evolution upwards starts from the inconscious, and therefore there can be all error, and error gives you evil and suffering and also falsehood and basis of physical existence. That's all. It has grown visibly on the surface in the manifold branchings of the ignorance, which is still the main bulk and condition of our consciousness in its difficult evolution towards a supreme consciousness and an integral awareness. Still very much bound in the mental world. In fact, in synthesis, he says that even the mental development has not been completed in man. Okay? There is still a lot to travel and go. And most men are not even mentally developed so that they can think logically and they can think objectively. That is not there, mostly. As long as there is this soil with the unfound roots in it and this nourishing air and climate of ignorance, the tree will grow and flourish and put forth its dual blossoms and its fruit of mixed nature. So, he is using an image. The tree of evolution is rooted in the inconscious, ignorance. Okay? So therefore, it will grow unless you change the soil itself. This is also even botanically it is true that if you have an impure soil, okay, or something which is poisoned the soil, the tree will never give good fruits. Okay, it may not even give fruit at all in the physical world. But this evolution from inconscience, it will give you all that is there hidden in the inconscience, the wrong things. And simply speaking about the dual blossoms. The dual blossoms are, he's talking of the all the dualities, hot, cold, okay, good, evil, suffering and pleasure, all these things are all the dualities. And the fruit of mixed nature. For human beings at the mental level, there is pleasant and there is unpleasant both. Okay. It would follow that there can be no final solution until we have turned our inconscience into the greater consciousness. There you are. So this is the problem. The problem of the physical world and its evil, falsehood and suffering cannot be changed unless you do something to the inconscience itself, which is the root. Okay. In everything it is like that. If you want to go to the root of something to solve the problem. Okay. Even medically, when you have cholera, you must know what is the cause of cholera. And once you go to the root and find you can have the Your power. Knowledge is power. So once you have the knowledge of what the inconscious is, then you can change it. You have the power. But unless you do that, the problem will remain the same forever. That is precisely why Srimda wanted to bring down the supermind into the inconscious and then change it to a certain extent to allow the evolution to go forward. It is because the inconscious imposes its original obscurity on our awareness of self and things, and because the ignorance bases it on an imperfect and divided consciousness, and because we live in that obscurity and division, that wrong knowledge and wrong will are possible. Without wrong knowledge, there could be no error or falsehood. Without error or falsehood in our dynamic parts, there could be no wrong will in our members. Without wrong will, there could be no wrongdoing or evil. While these causes endure, the effects also will persist in our action. Okay, so while these causes endure, what are the causes? Inconscience is the primal cause, and inconscience will give you wrong knowledge, and wrong knowledge will give you wrong will, and wrong will end up in error, falsehood, suffering, etc. So, while these causes endure, the effects will persist in our action and in our nature. A mental control can only be a control, not a cure. Okay? A mental teaching, rule, standard can only impose an artificial groove. Okay? An artificial groove in which our action revolves mechanically or with difficulty, and which imposes a curved and limited formation. A curved and limited formation. Sriman, mute yourself because this is coming. Okay? Yeah, as soon as he has done that. So he's saying that has to be done. The inconscient has to be changed to a certain extent. Can it ever be completely changed? Probably not. But it can go step by step. If the Superman comes down, and it will go take the evolution to the next step. Okay, so that's the solution that he has found. They have discovered the origin of falsehood and evil. We know that it starts manifesting itself in the vital world. In the vital world on the right-hand side ladder going up in the evolution. In the left-hand side ladder coming down, there is no harm at all. Okay? But there is the problem of the in the evolution upwards from the inconscient, that is the problem. So now the basic falsehood, evil and error are coming from the inconscient, so something has to be done to them. And that will be the next huge book 2, part 2, book 1. Okay, that's the whole discussion of the evolution, how it can go, how it can be done. So we read now the next one, but since the root of the difficulty is a split, limited and separative ignorance. Okay. So who has to read?
Yes, Angad, I'm reading.
Go ahead, Archana.
But since the root of the difficulty is a split, limited, and separative existence, this change must consist in an integration, a healing of the divided consciousness of a being. And since that division is complex and many-sided, no partial change on one side of the being can be passed off as a sufficient substitute for the integral transformation. Our first division is that created by our ego, and mainly, most forcefully, most vividly, by our life ego, which divides us from all other beings as not self and ties us to our egocentricity and the law of an egoistic self-affirmation. It is in the errors of this self-affirmation that wrong and evil first arise. Wrong consciousness engenders wrong will in the members, in the thinking mind, in the heart, in the life mind, and the sensational being. in the very body consciousness. Wrong will engender strong action of all these instruments, a multiple error, and many branching crookedness of thought and will and sense and feeling. Nor can we deal rightly with others so long as they are to us others, beings who are strangers to ourselves and of whose inner consciousness, soul need, mind need, heart need, life need, body need, we know little or nothing. The modicum of imperfect sympathy, knowledge, and goodwill that the law, need, and habit of association engender is a poor quantum of what is required for a true action. A larger mind, a larger heart, a more ample and generous life force can do something to help us or help others and avoid the worst offenses. But this too is insufficient and will not prevent a mass of troubles and harms and collisions of a preferred good with the good of others. By the very nature of our ego and ignorance, we affirm ourselves egoistically, even when we most pride ourselves on selflessness, and ignorantly, even when we most pride ourselves on understanding and knowledge. Altruism, taken as a rule of life, does not deliver us. It is a potent instrument for self enlargement and for correction of the narrower ego, but it does not abolish it nor transform it into the true self, one with all. The ego of the altruist is as powerful and absorbing as the ego of the selfish, and it is often more powerful and insistent because it is a self righteous and magnifying ego. It helps still less if we do wrong to our soul, to our mind, life, or body, with the idea of subordinating ourselves to the self of others. To affirm our being rightly so that it may become one with all is the true principle, not to mutilate or immolate it. Self immolation may be necessary at times, exceptionally for a cause, in answer to some demand of the heart or for some right or high purpose, but cannot be made the rule or nature of life. So exaggerated it would only feed and exaggerate the ego of others or magnify some collective ego, not lead us or mankind to the discovery and affirmation of our or its true being. Sacrifice and self giving are indeed a true principle and a spiritual necessity, for we cannot affirm our being rightly without sacrifice or without self giving to something larger than our ego. But that too must be done with a right consciousness and will founded on a true knowledge. To develop the sattvic part of our nature, a nature of light, understanding, balance, harmony, sympathy, goodwill, kindness, fellow feeling, self-control, rightly ordered and harmonized action is the best we can do in the limits of the mental formation. But it is a stage and not the goal of our growth of peace. There are solutions. These are solutions, by the way, palliatives, necessary means for a partial dealing with this root difficulty, provisional standards and devices given us as a temporary help and guidance, because the true and total solution is beyond our present capacity and can only come when we have sufficiently evolved to see it and make it our main endeavor.
Yeah. Okay. So just 1 minute. Well, so the problem is Swami is discussing the sense of separation, and the sense of separation is the ego. The ego is that which causes the sense of separation. Now, the it's very interesting that the um, sense of separation is absolutely essential for the one becoming the many. But the many, when the ego comes in, the many become separated. We feel ourselves to be separate from others. That's the main problem. And if that problem can be solved, then when you go to the higher level of consciousness in the cosmic consciousness, this suffering and evil and falsehood, they disappear. Huh? So that's the whole thing. So I'll do one thing. I'm reading the summary of the para, and then we'll go to the next one. Okay, we'll go sentence by sentence. Just tell me one thing, and make it our main, the last word is the endeavor, na? Of what we read just now. Archana ji, the last word of the para?
Yes, Rangana.
Endeavor, right, okay. So, then, just one second. Yeah, I've got it, okay. My computer is a little slow, so I have to. Yeah. The root of the problem is inconscience. This is what we read just now. Okay. The root of the problem is inconscience. But there is another obstacle to be considered, and it is the division of the one into the many. Okay. The division into infinite multiplicity ends in ego. Just one second. Yeah. The division of the infinite multiplicity ends in ego and ignorance. Ego isolation of the individual causes ignorance, clash with others, leading to falsehood and evil. When you are in the cosmic consciousness, there is no other, because you are one with everybody else, essentially. Okay? You see yourself as yourself in everybody else, and you see also everybody else in yourself. So there is no division at all. Leading to falsehood and evil. But also let us note that the principle of division itself is multifarious. Okay? It is Sat, Chit, Shakti and Ananda, and all undergo division and limitation. Okay? So the healing, the wholeness of harmony has to be applied to all the four and not only to one of them. Okay? So that's a problem. Okay? Falsehood belongs to the mind, shit. But there is also the other. Okay? Ananda also is there to be suffering. So all these different things, evil, falsehood, and suffering, falsehood comes from the mind, evil comes from the vital, and the sense suffering comes from the physical aspect. All these are becoming the many, and then the root problem is the division of all these things. The healing, the wholeness harmony has to be applied to all the four and not only to one of them. The division occurs in matter, atoms, and then in the vital, and finally in the mind. But the vital ego is the strongest of all, and it is here that falsehood and evil originate. Okay? Wrong consciousness engenders wrong will in mind, heart, and sensation, okay, which is the physical vital. Wrong will engenders, by the way, engenders is clear, no? To generate, to give birth to. Okay? Wrong will engenders wrong action on all of them. We do not know how to deal with others, other beings, ignorant of their needs in soul, mind, vital, and even in the body. We don't know what is good for them, so we make mistakes. So long as others are strangers to us, the clash and disharmony will persist indefinitely. So long as the division is there, we don't know what is good for them. Some enlargement of the nature, sympathy and compassion for others can help. It does not solve the problem, which is basic disharmony. This broadening of mind, life, may help in avoiding bigger problems, but minor problems will still exist. That's what Sri is saying. Then he says, altruism, philanthropy are good for progress, but being based in egoism cannot be the solution of harmony that we seek. In fact, the ego of the ego of the virtuous man, the do-gooder, okay, the one who does good, who thinks he is doing good, the altruist, the self-righteous man, can be much larger than that of the selfish, the sinner. Now that's very interesting what he's saying. Those who think that they are doing good, they have a sattvic ego. Okay, the ego doesn't disappear. And one who is a sinner, He may have a very, he may be selfish, but his ego may be very small, okay, relatively. Okay. The latter may be much less rigid in their nature than the virtuous man, with his inflexibility of goodness. Now that's a very interesting point. Those who are virtuous, okay, they can be very, very stuck in their goodness. They don't want to change. But the one who is a sinner can change very easily. There are many, many interesting examples in history of all those who change very clearly. Huh? I'll give you 2 examples. One was Jagai and Madhai of in Chaitanya's life. They actually, when they were drunk, they attacked him, but later on, they become absolutely his disciples. Then the other cases there of also the Girish Ghosh, okay, in Ramakrishna's life. Girish Ghosh was an actor and a playwright, but he was a big sinner. All the sins that you can think of, he was capable of that. But Ramakrishna never gave him up because he had tremendous love for Ramakrishna. So he was always encouraged. So these are all examples where the sinner, the ego may be much less than that of the do-gooder, okay, who are stuck in there. They think themselves to be very good because they are doing only moral good, but not spiritual good. That's the whole point. Then I continue. Again, let us note that self-denial, self-annulment, self-immolation, going overboard to help others, can harm oneself in soul, in mind and vital. Now this is also interesting. In trying to do good to others, you are actually limiting yourself. You are giving away, if you are a very generous rich man, you give away all your wealth to others and you will suffer. So that also should not be done. There should be a balance. It's a well-known fact also that Vivekananda's father, okay, they were well-to-do people, but he used to be very, very generous and all his money went away. So Vivekananda had actually, he had to look for a job. So it's very interesting that this can happen. So it's very clear what Sri is saying. Again, let us know that self-denial, self-annulment, self-immolation, going overboard to help others, can harm oneself in soul, in mind and vital. Okay? Of course, self-sacrifice is a necessary law in life, but it has to be practiced in correct proportion. You should not suffer yourself and help others. That's your obstructing your own progress. Okay? And with knowledge and not ignorance. Helping others is good, but with knowledge and not ignorance. The right of self-development, self-enlargement is legitimate and must be taken into account in our dealings with others. Okay? So all these very interesting points, we'll discuss them. To develop oneself in sattvic nature, away from rajasic and tamasic nature, is a rightful claim. But all these are to be done only in stages in the evolutionary journey. This is what's understood in this paragraph. But since it is so interesting, okay, we'll go into the details of what he's saying. It's a long paragraph, but it's very interesting what he's saying. 1 second.
Rangada?
Yes, tell me.
So the inconscience, Sri Aurobindo is saying, inconscience.
Yeah.
Inconscience here is cosmic. So as an individual, we cannot deal with, but the separation, the thing of separation, that's the thing we can deal with. But the inconscience is on cosmic level, so we
Yes.
cannot deal with. Is that what Sri Aurobindo imply here?
Yes. But Sunki, remember that whatever is there in the universe is also there in the individual. Okay? You have an individual inconscience also. You have an individual subconscious and you also have an individual inconscience. Okay? That also is there. You are part of the universe. The wave is part of the sea. So this relation between the universe and yourself, you must remember. Yes, the inconscience is the root cause of everything. Okay? But the problem of the manifestation of evil, suffering, and falsehood comes also at the level of the vital. It manifests, but the root cause is the inconscience. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the beginning of the para. It's a very interesting para. So let's see.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
You know, Sri Aurobindo has given this imagination of a tree with its roots in the inconscience.
Yes.
And as the tree is growing up, it is still in the inconscience, but it has fruits of good and evil, light and darkness, and all that.
Yes.
But as this tree is growing higher up, like a banyan tree, can it not throw a columnar root in a higher area from the inconscient into the subconscient, into the conscient? And can that tree not evolve?
Yes, what you are saying is very interesting. But one thing, remember that the images which is being given should not be taken to their extreme limit. Then we get into trouble. Okay, but you can say that the tree, when it is growing upwards, it becomes more and more free from the inconscience. The higher it goes, because that's exactly, you can apply that to human beings also. The more you go higher, the less you are affected by that which is lower. Okay, so the inconscience itself. Now I'll say something very interesting, which is my own view. Okay, so will the inconscience ever disappear completely? Is a question. Then, in that happens, then everybody will benefit. Okay, even animals. Okay, there will be no suffering. Can that ever happen? So he has told us very clearly that in the evolution, the number of atoms is more than the number of animals, okay, life. Then the number of human beings is less than the number of animals. The number of yogis is less than the number of human beings. The number of supramental beings will also be less than the yogis. It's a pyramidal structure. What is being shown in evolution is that the inconscience is capable, matter is capable of all these things. Everything is not being transformed. So to a certain extent, the inconscience will be pushed downwards. Okay? As you keep climbing higher and higher, the inconscience is not going to disappear, but it will be pushed downwards. In other words, the level between the inconscience and the superconscious will go on increasing. The inconscience will go further down, and the superconscious will also keep going higher and higher for mankind. Okay, so yes, it is true. You could picture it like that, that the tree, as it is growing upwards, the upper branches become more and more free from the inconscient. You could say that, because that's exactly what happens. No? So remember that everything is not going to be changed. The divine has not created the world in such a way that the game will end. The game will never end. So the inconscience can never disappear fully, but it can be pushed downwards. Okay? It can be pushed downwards. Because a time will come when you can even know the superconscious and subconscious and the superconscious. So it will be pushed downwards. The scale between the lower and the higher will go on increasing. Okay. As the evolution goes upwards, it will also go downwards to a certain extent. In this sense, that the scale, it will be easier to examine the downward movement also. That's why you can think of evolution as a pyramidal structure. The base is always very wide, and as it keeps going up, it becomes more and more limited. But it's a sampling of what what matter is capable of. Okay, you can think of it in that way. Okay.
Rangada,
Yes.
Rangada,
Yes.
another thing which just strikes me, came across my mind, just like knowledge gained in science was not
Yes.
beneficial only to the person who discovered that knowledge, but
Exactly.
it was for the whole mankind. So in the
Ex-
same way, the knowledge which comes, the superconscious, when it comes, it will actually change the whole, it will change the consciousness, or it will affect the whole universe, whether it is inconscient, subconscious.
Yes, that's true. It's a good, interesting remark that you have made. Yeah, it does benefit everybody in a certain sense, but it doesn't change the basic thing. Also, you can see also in science, take the question of healing. Okay, so when you have healed something, you have been able to solve the problem in a particular way, but the problem doesn't disappear. It comes back again in another form. Okay. Take malaria, for instance. We say that we have eradicated malaria. But somehow or other, there's a mutation. We know that about COVID also. It comes back in another form. The problem cannot be solved unless you go to the root of the problem. And the root is the inconscience. That is the inconscience. So, absolutely, the removal of physical suffering through illness can be only for the supramental race. They will never be under a um, subject. They will never be subject to the physical suffering. Okay? But human beings, you may cure some problems, but other problems may also come up. Okay, that's exactly what Sridhar is discussing here. That morality helps, religion also helps, but it doesn't solve the problem ever fully. So, oh, it's already 8:37. We have got only 3 minutes more. So,
Can I ask one more question, please?
yes, go ahead.
You know, just as Sri Aurobindo, after he left his body, with his key, he had opened the subtle physical worlds and the inconscient, and the Divine Mother was working on that. She was working on her own cells for transformation.
Yes.
Now, when the supramental totally descends on the whole of earth, will it not go into the inconscient and transform it?
It will not transform fully. That's exactly what we were discussing. No? It will not transform fully, but it will transform to a certain extent, will allow the evolution to go to the higher level. That it will allow.
That means there is no happy ending of the story.
There is a happy ending in the final, the finale, the climax will be happy.
So wouldn't ultimately the inconscient become conscient?
Well, that this question has not been absolutely solved by, has not been absolutely mentioned by Sri Aurobindo, but you can imagine, he has said very clearly that the upward evolution will help the downward movement, but it will not abolish the total downwards. After all, he has said very clearly the animals will remain. No? And if the animals remain, there will be all the problems of the animal world. The matter is not going to remain or is not going to disappear. That also will remain. This is exactly what we were discussing just now. As you keep going higher and higher, the possibilities of matter will be revealed at the higher levels, one by one, one by one.
But matter will look out through spirit's gaze and spirit will look out through matter's gaze.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So the matter has to be spiritualized.
Not entirely. Matter in the body, okay, in the individual body will be spiritualized. In other words, men's body will not be spiritualized, but the supramental race, their body will be spiritualized, will be supramentalized. So it is that this is capable of being done. That will be shown. An animal cannot become supramentalized. Not possible. Anyway, so The time is 8:40 already, so we have to stop here today. So the detailed
Dada?
discussion. Yeah, tell me.
Dada, I have to just tell one thing. What my sister has told, just if inconscient will remain no more inconscient and that will be conscient forever, then there will be no creation. I think
The inconscience will not be completely transformed. It will be pushed downwards, maybe, in that sense. Okay? It can be pushed downwards. The inconscience is something created by the divine and will remain, because this is the scheme of the one becoming the many. The basic things are not going to change. Only the evolution will go upwards always. That's the whole point. Okay, we'll have to stop here today. Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Tomorrow we'll continue. We'll go into detail of what he has said here. Okay, he has said very clearly. But since the root of difficulty, we'll start from there. We'll read. We had
Yes.
today, but we didn't do it because I read the summary. Sometimes it helps because it's a very big para, and when you go from one idea to another idea, the previous idea is lost sometimes in the mind. Okay, so we'll redo this again tomorrow. But since the root of the difficulty. So,
Au revoir, Dada. Thank you, Dada.
okay.
Okay, thank you, Dada.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Have a nice day.